It's high noon.
Welcome back, everybody. Broncos Gaming World. It's been a while, but we're back with another season of Tecmo Super Bowl. This time we're hitting 1987 Quantum Leap season, revisiting our boys, the Cleveland Browns. And those who know football history knows what happened to the Cleveland Browns in 1987 in Denver. And our boy, Ernest freaking Biner, coughs up the football in the one of the most famous plays in history, the fumble. Completely derails the Cleveland Browns season and their quest for the Super Bowl, which to this day, they still have not been to. Ernest Biner, you carried the ball like a loaf of bread, and Jeremiah Castillo knocked it out of your damn hands on the damn goal line. To be fair, it was the tying score potentially, but the Browns had all the momentum and every reason to believe that they were going to win that game. Anyways, so we're going back to 1987, playing as the Cleveland Browns, gearing ourselves up to see what's happening. Let's take a look at the rosters for 1987 here in our 1987 regular season preview. Let's go. Let's just go right down the line. Buffalo. This are the Bills teams that are starting to come together. You can see the makings of the teams they're going to be right here. Got Jim Kelly. He's looking good. They don't have the All-American freaking backup quarterback just yet. Ronnie Harmon was the best running back on the roster. Dude had freaking great set of hands, solid running back. He has an absolutely tragic drop pass in the freaking divisional round against Cleveland, and Buffalo fans hate him forever. Still pretty good running back, though. Jamie Mueller, decent fullback. Andre Reed, looks like Andre Reed. He's pretty good. Chris Burkett, decent secondary receiver for him. Steve Tasker, special teams extraordinaire. Pete Metzelaars, mediocre tight end. Keith McKellar ends up being the better tight end long term. There's their boy, Scott Norwood. They'll hate him in about 4 more years. Their defense is a nightmare. Bruce freaking Smith, probably the best defensive player in the game. Fred Smurl is pretty good. Daryl Talley, come on. Shane Conlon. Cornelius Bennett. Nate Odoms. This is early for Nate Odoms. He's not quite the player he's going to be. Mark Kelso, he's a freaking stud, wearing the crazy-ass helmet. Bills, team to lock out for. Indianapolis, they're on the opposite end. We have the freaking Prime Minister of Canada, Jack Trudeau. He's terrible. Gary Hogaboom. Ooh. Come on, Gary Hogaboom. They do have Dickerson. I give them Eric Dickerson, and he is freaking man. And they got him statted out pretty good here. So I'm curious to see what Dickerson's going to do. Albert Bentley, also pretty good. Not quite as good as Dickerson, but pretty good. Bill Brooks, decent. Matt Booza, pretty good. If I remember, this Indianapolis team is actually decent. Their quarterback plays just shit. Pat Beach. Got John Hand, he's pretty good. Dwayne Bickett, still freaking stud. Looking like the Dwayne Bickett that you're going to see in Tecmo Bowl later in 1988. Eugene Daniel, he was pretty good. So they got some guys. I wouldn't say they got anything super great. They do have freaking Dickerson, so they're going to be pretty good. Miami, they got Dan the Man. Whoa. That's Dan the Man in freaking average. Then they have their freaking rotating door of running backs, Lorenzo Hampton right now. Troy Stratford. Troy Stratford's actually a better running back than Hampton, I think. Yeah. Troy Stratford should be their starter. They got the Marks brothers. Mark Clayton, stud. Mark Duper, stud. Jim Jensen, underrated, pretty good player. Scott Schweddies. Bruce Hardy, decent tight end. Their defense was mediocre to bad. They had some decent guys. John Bosa. Last name's pretty familiar to folks nowadays. John Offerdahl was an absolute nightmare. The rest of their guys, kind of shit. New England Patriots. Oof. Oh, where's Tony Eason? Didn't he play for him? I think he was out the whole year because they got Steve the Man Grogan. Still ends up playing on the original Tecmo Super Bowl for the New England Patriots. Tom Ramsey. I'm pretty sure that it's not long for Doug Flutie to show up here. Mosi Tupu. This New England team is a far cry from the one that made the Super Bowl just a couple of years prior. Stanley Morgan, still pretty good. Irving Fryer, pretty good. The rest of them, not so good. They have some decent dudes on defense. Freaking Andre Tippett. Andre Tippett's good. Raymond Claiborne's decent. This is where Raymond Claiborne's decent. He shows up in Cleveland like a dog turd, but here he's okay. Ronnie Lepet was a good corner. Fred Marion was a good corner. Jim Bowman, don't know who the hell that is. New England, they're not going to be great. NYJ, the New York freaking Jets. Ken O'Brien. When we played the 86 season, he was a god among men. Took him to the damn Super Bowl. They freaking beat our ass in the freaking playoffs. Brandon McNeil. Johnny Hector. Altoon's freaking stud. They got some dudes. Jojo Townsell. I remember these guys being Mickey Schuler. He's a good tight end. They got some guys. Joe Klecko. Freaking Hall of Famer. Marty Lyons, he was pretty good. Mark Gastineau is already out of the league, apparently. Whether it's whoever made the mod here was too afraid to put him in here. The rest of their defense is nothing special, man. I'm not expecting a whole lot out of these guys, out of the Jets. Let's go down to the Washington Redskins, 1987 Super Bowl champions in the real life. Jay freaking Schrader. He's a 44 man. He's not good. Doug Williams ends up being the man. He's understated here too. George Rogers. Oh, that guy was a stud. It was really bad that he got hurt. And then they've got some solid receivers here with Gary Clark, Art Monk. This is before they had, I think, Ricky Sanders too. They had some dudes. Clint Didier. He's pretty good tight end. They're just able to just maul people on the ground. Freaking George Rogers, just absolute freaking mauling people. They're freaking O-line, Mark May, Joe Jacoby, Thielman, Raleigh McKenzie, Russ Grimm, just absolute assassins. Ali Hazi Sheik! Yes! Their defense was where it's at. Dexter, I can't read Manley. Didn't matter if he couldn't read, he would kill you. Charles freaking Mann. Yeah, their defense was a freaking nightmare. Dave Butts. Oh my god. Daryl Green. He should be the fastest man in the game. He might be. Todd Bowles, D coordinator. Alvin Walton, he was good too. Yeah, their defense was where it was at, man. NYG. Phil Simms, overrated like a mofo. He was never that good. Jeff Rutledge, no. Joe Morris, he was good for a few years. Got too beat up out of the league in 5 years. Lionel Manuel, decent receiver. Stephen Baker. Their offense was never anything good. Phil McConkey. Their offense, look at their offense. This is the team that just came off of winning the fucking Super Bowl. This team right here. Mark Bavaro was a freaking nightmare, but the rest of these guys, they're nothing special, man. Their defense, again, defense was where it's at. Leonard Marshall, Jim Burt, freaking LT. I mean, come on. Harry Carson, Pepper Johnson. These guys were all freaking Hall of Fame caliber players. Carl Banks. Their DBs were a little weaker. Still decent, though. Terry Kennard, he's all right. Kenny Hill, yeah. This is the team that came off of winning the damn Super Bowl, though. Their offense was poop. Philadelphia Eagles, Randall Cunningham. This is before he really took off. This is where you started seeing that Randall Cunningham was the shit. Man at a time right there. If he played in more modern day, he would have been absolutely devastating. Keith Byers from the Ohio State University. Anthony Toney, he was all right. Mike Quick, good receiver. Kenny Jackson. This is a year away from them getting Chris Carter. John Spagnola, the coach. Their defense again. Defense is where it's at here too. Clyde Simmons. What? Jerome Brown. What? Reggie White. Their D-line is an unmitigated nightmare. Holy crap. And this is early time for these guys. And they're just unbelievable. Seth Joyner, come on. They end up with freaking Eric Allen from the Arizona State University here in 88, I believe. Yeah, Eagles, man. They're a team to watch out for here. The St. Louis Cardinals, before they end up in Arizona. Neil Lomax was unbelievable. If that guy could have kept from getting hurt, could have been a Hall of Famer. I'm not even talking out my ass. Could have been a Hall of Famer. Stump Mitchell, decent running back. Freaking Vi Sikahema, kick return extraordinaire man. JT Smith, solid receiver. Roy Green, solid receiver. They had some dudes, man. They had some dudes. Rob Awalt, he was good too. I remember Rob Awalt. Rob Awalt was the starter in St. Louis over Jay fucking Novacek. Who, anybody who knows the Cowboys in the early 90s knows that Jay Novacek was unbelievably good. Louis Sharp, solid freaking left tackles. Tootie Robbins, he was decent too. I remember some of these guys, man. Their defense, mediocre to poop. Freddie Joe Nunn, he was all right. Nico Noga was decent. EJ Jr., he was okay. Anthony Bell, no. Cedric Mack, he was okay. Carl Carter, no. Lonnie Smith was pretty good. Or Lonnie Young was pretty good. This is before they had Tim McDonald. This Cardinals team is decent. I don't expect miracles out of them. Dallas was poor here in 87. Danny White, he's a decent quarterback, underrated. He came in on the freaking heels of Roger Staubach and never could live up to the hype of being the number one guy in Dallas. Steve Pelluer ended up getting a lot of playing time because Danny White got hurt a lot. Herschel Walker was something else. Tony Dorsett on the back end of his career. Disappointing and sad to see it. Ends up over there in Denver in another year or so. Their receivers weren't anything great. Kelvin Edwards, he was okay. Mike Renfro, pretty good, but nothing spectacular. Their tight ends are not great. Their defense, it had some guys. Jim Jeffcoat was pretty good. Randy White was freaking stud. Ed Too Tall Jones, come on. Eugene Lockhart was okay. Everson Walls was a freaking stud. Michael Downs is all right. Bill Bates is okay. They had some guys. Bill Bates would knock your freaking block off. But that Dallas team was not good. All right, let's look at the rest of my division. The AFC Central. The Cincinnati Bengals. This is a team that was close to going to the damn Super Bowl. They went to the Super Bowl in 88. Norman starting to shape up. 88 is where Norman hits his freaking stride. James Brooks, same kind of deal. 88, 89, 88, 89, 90. That's where James Brooks is the man. He's getting there. Larry Kennebrew, still a little bit better running back at that time. More of a fullback, but he's pretty good. Stanford Jennings, he returns to kick in the Super Bowl for TD. Eddie Brown, good receiver, solid. Chris Collinsworth, here's a guy who is pretty mediocre. Tim McGee was a decent receiver too. Ronnie Holman. They have the pieces. You can see the pieces that the Bengals had that got them to the Super Bowl. How they got to the Super Bowl over a team like freaking Buffalo at the time, it's kind of crazy. They got some dudes on defense too. Tim Crumrive's pretty good. Reggie Williams is okay. Louis Billups, solid corner. David Fulcher, Arizona State man. Freaking stud. Not great, though. Their defense needed a couple more people. Jim Scow, he was okay. Needed a couple more pieces yet. We looked at the Browns. Same thing here with the Oilers. They're on the brink. Moon, he's getting there. He's still pretty freaking good, but he's getting there. He's getting there. Mike Rozier, Nebraska man. He's all right. Heisman. The man, Ernest Givens. I think it's a rookie year in 87. He's freaking stud. Drew Hill, stud. Curtis Duncan, pretty good. I think it's early for him, maybe even his rookie year. Willie Drury, he was actually decent too. God, he's bad here. Freaking 19 max speed. Come on. Hall of Famer Bruce Matthews. Dean Steinkühler, get it. Tony's and Dejas. On the defensive end, they still needed some help. They're getting there, but they needed some help. Richard Byrd, not great. Ray Childress, he's early in his career, so he's getting there. Al Smith is okay. John Grimsley's pretty good. Their defensive backs are not great. Jeff Donaldson's probably the best of them. So Houston's not there yet. They're getting there. Pittsburgh, these are some bad Steelers fans. These are some bad Steelers teams in the mid 80s, man. Mid to late 80s. They were just not good. Example, Mark fucking Malone. I'm an Arizona State guy. He's an Arizona State product. I'm sorry. Steve Bono. He ends up being better down the line in his career with the 49ers in Kansas City. Abercrombie, reasonable running back, nothing special. Same thing with Ernest Jackson. Tons of hitting power, decent back, nothing crazy. Dwight Stone, solid receiver. John Stallworth, I'm shocked he's still in the league in 87. He's definitely on the back end of his career. Yeah, that's about it for your offensive talent. They have some decent dudes on the O-line. Mike Webster's still freaking unbelievable. Tunch Ilkin's pretty solid. Gary Anderson, good kicker. Their defense was a shell of what it normally is. I mean, you're talking freaking Keith Willis was okay. David Little was all right. Mike Merriweather, he's pretty good. Delton Hall was all right. Dwayne Woodruff. This is right before you guys saw freaking... I can't even remember the guy's name anymore. Hit me up in the comments. What's the corner for Pittsburgh? Freaking stud. I can't remember his damn name. Donnie Shell, pretty good. Thomas Effort, pretty good. Pittsburgh, man, they're not good. They aren't good here. The Chicago Bears. This is a team that won the Super Bowl 2 years previously. It's the last year of Walter Payton, I believe. 87, 88, somewhere in there. Jim McMahon. It's his year. He gets freaking just his shoulder freaking obliterated. He never recovers. Mike Tomczak is the man that comes in. Ohio State's Mike Tomczak, turd. Walter Payton. I'm sorry, this is doing him dirty. He was still, I would dare say, top end, even in the last couple of years of his career. So that's bullshit that they did that to him. Come on. Neil Anderson was not better than Peyton on the back of his career. His hitting power 94. What the fuck? Willie Gault, the fastest man in football. He's a pretty good receiver. Ron Morris, he was okay. Dennis Gentry, that dude was all hype. That dude never really actually did anything. Emery Moorhead, reasonable tight end. Caposo, stud in Tecmo Bowl. Runs the slant route that you can't defend. Their defense is still full of just freaking nightmares. Richard Dent, Perry, Dan Hampton. All three of them just disasters waiting to freaking kill somebody. Wilbur Marshall, Mike Singletary, Steve McMichael, Otis Wilson, all of them. Their defense still an absolute nightmare. I mean, what the hell? Bessie Jackson, decent. Mike Richardson, mediocre. Dave Duerson, stud. Todd Bell, mediocre. Bears, they'll probably be all right, though. Detroit, many years before Barry Sanders, you guys had guys like Chuck Long, mediocre at best. Gary James, mediocre. James Jones, slightly better, still pretty mediocre. Their receivers, Mandley, pretty good actually. Jeff Chadwick, he was okay. Yeah, that's about nothing else to write home about there. Eddie Murray was a decent kicker. Defense, Mike Cofer, he was all right. Jerry Ball, he gets better. He comes along. He's still not great, but he gets better. And yeah, nothing else really worth writing home about. Detroit, they're going to suck. Green Bay, you see him. See the backup quarterback. You see him. But Randy Wright's the starter. Because the backup is the Magic Man, Don Majkowski. You know what he becomes. He becomes the man. Just before Brett Favre shows up. Kenneth Davis, decent running back. Brett Fullwood, also decent. This is before they have the best receiver of the era, Sterling Sharp. They have Walter Stanley. He's okay. Walter Stanley was okay. Phil Epps was all right. Ed West was really good. Nothing special on their O-line. Their defense, also not a whole lot of things special going on here. They have Carricker. He was okay. Tim Harris was pretty good. Johnny Holland was all right. Brian Noble. Their linebacking core was decent. Mark Murphy was pretty good. And yeah, that's about it. Green Bay, they're going to be average. Minnesota. Okay. Minnesota is a weird team, man. Because they've got some dudes on this squad. They should have made a lot more noise than they did. Wade Wilson, decent quarterback. Nothing special, but decent. He's filling in for Tommy Kramer, who had to shut it down. In our previous run with the Cleveland Browns, this Minnesota team won the fucking Super Bowl. So we've got that kind of the hang they had on. Darren Nelson, he was a solid running back. Darren Nelson was decent. DJ Dozier from the Penn State, he was turd. Anthony Carter, solid receiver for a long time for Minnesota. He made some noise. Hassan Jones, pretty good. Steve Jordan stars in one of the best vignettes in pro wrestling with Mr. Perfect. O-line had some dudes on it. Kirk Loudermilk, Gary Zimmerman, pretty good guys. Their defense is where it's at. Chris Dolman, boom. That guy will devastate you. Keith Millard, devastating. Freaking Henry Thomas, devastating. Jesse Solomon was pretty good. Carl Lee, freaking stud. Wayman Henderson, he was pretty freaking good. Joey Browner, absolute stud. Minnesota, they're going to make some noise. You watch. Tampa, ooh, man. Tampa Bay. Steve DeBerg. You know what? He was pretty good back then. He ends up getting hurt, though, and I'm pretty sure Vinny plays pretty much the whole year. And where he throws like 14 TDs and 35 picks. It's ridiculous the amount of interceptions that Vinny Testaverde throws in his rookie year. But Steve DeBerg is the starter. Vinny coming in. Ooh, no. He's not good. He'll be around the league for a long time, though. James Wilder, solid running back. He's pretty good here. Jeff Smith is their starter. I don't like that. Mark Carrier, he was an okay receiver. Pretty undervalued here. He's probably early in his career. Gerald Carter, mediocre. That's about all you can write home about for the freaking Bucks, other than Donald Igubike on the defensive front. They're a ways away from anything that moves the needle here. They got Ricky Reynolds. Oh. What'd they do to you? What'd you do to my boy? Look at what you did to him. Ricky Reynolds is a decent corner. Holy crap, is he... Wow. That means if he's in bad, he's a 13 max speed, 13 hitting power, 19 quickness. Oh my God, Ricky Reynolds is decent. He was a decent corner. I wouldn't say he was like anything earth-shattering, but he was okay. There's nobody else on this freaking defensive roster that I want to look at. They're all turd. Tampa, you guys are going to be in deep shit. All right, over here, we got Denver. This is a team that goes to the Super Bowl. John Elway. I feel like they have him undervalued here because he was pretty much in prime John Elway at this stage. Sammy Winder, decent utility running back. Vance Johnson, solid receiver. Mark Jackson, solid receiver. Ricky Nattiel, solid receiver. They had three dudes that were all really universally good receivers. Clarence K, reasonable freaking tight end. Their O-line was solid. Rich Carlos was a good kicker. Michael Rand was a good punter. Rulon Jones was a freaking bully on the D-line. Freaking Andre Townsend, he was pretty good too. Carl Mecklenburg, undervalued inside linebacker, one of the best of his time. Simon Fletcher just came on board, and he was starting to show what he could do. Mike Harden was a victim of one of the greatest revenge hits in the history of football. Mark Hayes, he was pretty good. Tony Lilly, solid. Dennis Smith, solid. They don't even have the guy who causes the fumble in the game. That makes me a little sad. Ricky Hunley, he was pretty good too. Yeah. Denver's defense was better than people gave him credit for. Greg Cragen, he was pretty solid too. Was better than they gave him credit for. John Elway was everything to this team. I'd be shocked, based on the stats I've seen here, that this team's good enough to get to the Super Bowl. Kansas City Chiefs. Bill Kenny. Notice that Todd Blackledge is nowhere to be seen. That's because he was so bad out of the 83 draft that he didn't make it much farther than like 85, 86. I think he got hurt too. Bill Kenny, starter. Oh, you see him right there. Do you see him? He's right there. Christian Okoye. And he's already ready to give nightmares to everybody. Though he is the backup running back, or the fullback, I suppose. Stephon Page, solid receiver. Jonathan Hayes, he was an okay tight end. Not a whole lot going on in Kansas City, though. Nick Lowry, one of the best kickers of all time. They do have some dudes on D, especially their defensive backs. Okay, their defensive backs are freaking All-Americans. Like, front to back, all of them. They'll probably have them underrated here, but front to back, top to bottom, their freaking running back, or their defensive backs are all studs. Mike Bell, solid D lineman. Bill Moss, solid D lineman. Jack Del Rio, the coach, pretty decent inside line or outside linebacker. Dino Hackett, reasonable inside linebacker. And then you get to the D backs. Kevin Ross, one of the best of his time. Albert Lewis, one of the best of his time. Deron Cherry, massively underrated. Dude was a freaking murder house. Lloyd Burris, solid safety. Their defensive backs at Kansas City in the mid to late 80s were freaking amazing. All right, Al Davis and his... Well, you see his name, don't you? It's right there. Mark Wilson. Whoa, look at Mark Wilson's accuracy. There's no way that's true. Rusty Hilger. Oh, I remember these guys. God, they were bad. Marcus. He's still in his prime, Marcus. Bo Jackson. What? I don't even understand the stat line here for Bo Jackson. It's kind of weird. His max speed should definitely be higher by a lot. By at least 20. The rushing power is probably going to be what carries them. They do have Bo Jackson. They also have James Lofton, who's a pretty good receiver. They also have Mervin Fernandez, who was okay. I would not say he was bad. They have Todd Christensen, who was one of the best tight ends in the league at the time. This is before he shows up on American Gladiators. Ethan Horton, decent receiver, too early in his career. Their defense had some dudes as well. They had Sean Jones before he goes to Houston. Bill Pickell, he's pretty good. Howie Long, he's an okay. I mean, kind of a shit player. But, you know. Howie Long. Matt Millen, solid inside linebacker. Terrible GM, but solid linebacker at the NFL level. Their D-backs, Mike Haynes. Come on. Is it Lionel Washington? Ooh, he's not good. Van McElroy, one of the best names in football. Stacy Turan, he's okay. This Raiders team will be all right. Got two. Their running game is going to be unbelievable. Their quarterback play is ass. San Diego. It's a swan song for our boy Dan Fouts. He's looking at Gary Anderson, decent running back. Lionel James, he was decent too. Little man. Wes Chandler, one of the all-time greats. Jamie Holland was okay receiver. Kellen Winslow, one of the all-time greats. They had some dudes still. They were on the back end, but they had some dudes. Pete Holohan, who's an okay tight end too. Had a couple of guys on defense. This is, I think we're just a little shy of Leslie O'Neal, so they don't quite have that going for them yet. Chip Banks left the Cleveland Browns to show up in San Diego. Big mistake on his part. Gary Plummer hasn't quite got there yet. Billy Ray Smith, he was solid. Gil Bird, he's still on San Diego in 91 on that roster. Vince Glenn, he was pretty good. Martin Bayless, also pretty good. Elvis Patterson, all those guys are pretty good. Elvis Patterson, I think, played for freaking the Giants the year before, so that's another free agent move. San Diego's going to be mediocre. The Seattle Sea Chickens. Dave Craig, the fumble master. Don't underestimate him, man. He was a decent quarterback in his time. A lot of folks don't remember him. I don't remember how good he was. He was pretty good. The other Kurt Warner, he was a great running back in the 80s. John L. Williams, also way undervalued. He never got a fair shake as the lead back in Seattle. He should have. Bobby Joe Edmonds, no. Steve Largent, I think he's got 2 more years left. He's one of the best of all time. There's nothing really else to say about him. Joe Turner, mediocre. The coach, Mike Tice. They had some guys. Defense had some dudes too. They got one dude on there, I see. Brian Bosworth. Wow, they're giving him a lot more credit than he deserves. He should look like Gary Reasons. Let's see what else we got. Terry Taylor was okay. I think he ends up down in, I can't remember where he ends up. Eugene Robinson, pretty good. Actually, really good safety. That dude's in the NFL all the way to 99. He plays for Atlanta in the Super Bowl and fucks up and gets busted the night before the freaking Super Bowl. Kenny Easley, quite possibly the best safety in the league at the time. That's some dudes. They're still not quite where they need to be yet. They'll be average. San Francisco. You look at some of the dudes on this team and you struggle to figure out how they didn't win more Super Bowls in the 80s. And that's saying a lot considering I believe they won fucking 4. They should have won more than that. Why? Joe Montana. What? Steve Young is backing him up and wow, they did him dirty. Roger Craig, solid running back. As solid of a running back as you could ask for. Tom Rathman, solid fullback. As solid as you could ask for. Jerry Rice, quite possibly the best receiver of all time. Definitely the best of this time. I still firmly believe Sterling Sharp was a better receiver in his prime, but Jerry Rice, universally best receiver of all time. Mike Wilson, that's kind of where they took a step back. Their second and third receivers weren't as good. Dwight Clark was on the back end of his career here. He was pretty solid. John Taylor was rookie coming in here. Ended up being a decent number 2 man for them for a long time. Russ Francis, solid tight end. O-line, good. Randy Cross, Jesse Sapolo, Bubba Paris, Harris Barton, come on. Defense is where they take a little bit of a hit. They take a step back. They still have some guys, though. Michael Carter, pretty good. Keena Turner was decent. The rest of their linebackers, nothing to write home about. Don Griffin, he was a solid corner. Tim Kyer, pretty good. Ends up over in Atlanta opposite Dion. Ronnie Lott, right there with one of the best safeties of all time. Probably the best in the league at this time. Jeff Fuller, pretty good. This team primed, ready to freaking rail some folks. Jim, don't call me Chris Everett. This is early in his career, like second year. He'll get there. Steve Dills. Charles White from the University of Southern California. Way too good here. Way too good here. He was good. He wasn't that good. Henry Ellard. He was solid. Ron Brown, the freaking Olympic sprinter. Give that guy some speed because he deserves it. Nothing else going on the offensive side of the ball. They did have Jackie Slater, who is probably quite possibly one of the best freaking linemen of all time. They had a couple of guys on defense, but nothing to write home about. Mike Wilcher was pretty good. Jerry Gray shows up over in Houston. Those of you guys who watched my 92 series, we were leaning on Jerry Gray a lot. Leroy Irvin was all right. Vince Newsom, decent safety. Here he's not, but he was okay. Yeah, nothing special, man. This Rams team, I think, does go like 10-6, though. New Orleans. This team's bums me out. I think they're a year or two away from making the playoffs here. They got Bob Herbert, Bobby Hebert. That's about right for him right now. John Forcade. John Forcade. Reuben Mays came off of being Rookie of the Year in 86. He's pretty good. I always liked Dalton Hilliard a little better. John Tice is like a fullback. Eric Martin was a great receiver. Mel Gray ends up in Detroit being a good kick returner for them. Hobie. Had some dudes, though. They should have done more, in my opinion, for sure. Morton Anderson, one of the best kickers of all time. Their D is where it's at, man. They got some dudes. They got the freaking Dome Patrol, Pat Swilling, Vaughn Johnson, Sam Mills, and Ricky Jackson. What in the F are you supposed to do against that? Well, you throw the ball against them because their DBs are just okay. Dave Waymer, he's all right. Actually, he's really good. Brett Maxey was pretty decent safety. Antonio Gibson was okay. This team's a year or so away from being something special. The ATL. This is a bad Atlanta team. Like, bad. Scott Campbell, no. Chris Miller ends up being the man there in Atlanta, but not yet. Gerald Riggs, really good running back. Like Gerald Riggs a lot. John Settle ends up being a 1,000-yard rusher for him. It may have been in 87, 88, somewhere in there. Floyd Dixon, he's a receiver for them for a long-ass time. Ken Wisenhunt, the coach, leads Cardinals in the Super Bowl in 2009. Nothing else special going on there. D. They do have, to be fair, they have Bill Fralick, who's pretty good. Mike Ken. Both of those guys are solid. Over here on the defensive side of the ball, this is before guys like Jesse Tuggle and Dion. This is the team that gets them Dion. This team gets them Deion Sanders. Scott Case would knock your freaking head off, though. Tim Green was okay. John Rady was solid. Tony Casillas was pretty good. Undervalued there. This is probably early in his career. Nothing to write home about with any of these guys. Tim Green was okay. All right, I think I already said that. Yeah, this is not a good Atlanta team. They're going to be shit. All right, So predictions. Buffalo, first place in the AFC East. We're taking the AFC Central. Oh, man, the quarterback play is so bad. Fuck. Raiders, I'm saying, are going to take the West. Philly, Minnesota, San Francisco. That's what we're going for. That's what we're going with. All right, folks, that's the season preview and my predictions for the 1987 season. Please like and subscribe here at Broncos Gaming World. I appreciate you guys hanging in there with me. Next time, we'll be hitting week 1. Week 1 says the Cleveland Browns get the New Orleans Saints. In week 1, we will see you next time, folks. Until then, good night now.
Boom goes the dynamite.